Welcome to the Kdrama Show. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Kim.
We're here to unpack your all-time favorite Korean dramas and chat about all the reasons that we find these shows so charming.
And so addictive. And we know you do too, so settle in with some ramen and a boba tea while we dive into the Kdrama Show with Ashley and Kim.
Episode 4 already.
It's come so fast.
Every time, this is only our second season, but I feel like it hits us of like, wow, we've
completed this much of the show already.
Right. How is this? We are.
Granted, we release episodes weekly, but we record them in batches, so I think it kind of... Sometimes the releasing of episodes can feel a little more drawn out than the actual,
Right. Like when...
creation of our recordings.
Well, like when you thought that it was time for episode 15 to drop of season 1, and you're like, I would have shaved my head.
I got a little too comfortable.
And realized Ashley was actually wanting episode 16 because it was supposed to drop.
It's been an interesting couple of weeks trying to get episodes posted for me.
It's okay.
Thanks for saying that, but it's not.
It's okay to not be okay.
It's okay to not be okay.
Totally recommend that K-drama, by the way.
Hey,
that's a great show.
I don't know if he's a lead or not. I don't know a lot about that drama because it looks sad to me. Is it sad?
There's sad moments, but it's not an overall sad show.
He might be like a secondary lead or a side character, but the guy who in the beginning is like sprinting out of the hospital is the second lead in My ID is Gangnam Beauty.
Oh, okay. I like him.
I liked him in the show.
A very good actor.
I was thinking this yesterday, how it's interesting to me how some actors will come out of the gates a lead and some have to like build their way up to it. So like an example would be the lead from Bride of Habik.
Yes. Oh.
I can't think of his name right now, I'm sorry, but
I'm a big fan of him.
I love his stuff, but he started out as like not even a second lead, like a side character.
Really?
And then he, built his way up. Same thing with Song Kang.
Yeah.
He started out as like
side
character to a second lead to now like leading
a lot of
major
which
dramas.
I learned about Song Kang the other day, like yesterday. He's actually like trained in ballet. So for him to do that show,
that's amazing.
He actually knows how to do ballet.
I didn't
know that.
Appreciate when shows that portray dance,
they have somebody who actually has some background,
someone playing an instrument, anything like that, give you, and I mean they don't have to be any kind of like
prodigy in it or something,
but to have some knowledge to do justice to the performance parts of your performance, I think is very respectful.
So yeah, when I learned that he actually had some background in ballet, I was like, okay, now I have to watch.
I wasn't sure I wanted to watch it.
And now I want to after learning that.
Too. Yeah.
So I was like, that's. I respect you so much more now, in the fact that you took on this role because it's a tribute to his own life too. Right, you're highlighting something that you've put the work in for that before.
I have to tell you something, and I don't want you to take this in an insulting way.
Oh no!
But looking at your glasses.
Oh no! I'm already so offended, guys.
I think they're adorable, so I don't want you to.
I
think
know
that
you do.
I just realized why they look familiar.
Oh, no.
And it's because we had an egg dyeing kit growing up where they had the little wire screws that you can use to bend and dip the egg into the dye and the rims. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm telling you this. The rims look just like, because they were kind of hexagonal. Yeah. That's amazing. Oh, I loved the trip down memory lane.
Y'all.
And it's perfect because Easter is next week.
Oh my goodness.
So what I'm saying is, whenever the prescription runs out and you get tired of the frames,
I'll
use them for egg dyeing.
Oh my goodness. I kind of appreciate that. That kind of is awesome.
They're the same color though too, which is why I was just like flashback to my childhood. Thanks. That was great. I appreciate it.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. Anytime.
Oh man.
Where the heck were we? Okay. I really
appreciating actors and their craft and the work that they do. Which, speaking of, perfect segue into Ashley's tea.
Yes, please.
Okay. So my tea for this episode is right now, the Major League Baseball is doing a World Series.
Yes.
And they are actually in Seoul right now, Seoul, Korea, at the Sky Dome. Mm-hmm. And they called up an actress, Jung-so, who she is, she became known from the movie Burning. I haven't seen that one. One called The Call. I've heard of it. It sounds intense, like super, like insane. It's like they get connected through a phone, and one's in the 90s and one's in like the 20 years later, and they become friends. It's weird. It's kind of like a horror thriller. It's a thriller, and I was like, anyway. So she's from The Call.
I kind of want to watch it.
I kind of want to watch it. Yeah. I know her from Korean Money Heist.
Oh, I didn't
and she
know
plays.
Was one.
Yeah. So the original Money Heist takes place in Spain, and then this one, the Korean Money Heist, she is the character Tokyo.
Okay.
And I've watched it. I loved it. And she's also in a movie called Ballerina. And so she's a very up-and-coming actress. She's actually getting a lot of...
So she does, like, blockbuster stuff. She doesn't do dramas.
No.
So much.
Not so much. But she's actually been getting a lot of interest to transition in, like, to Hollywood.
Really?
Like, to do more American movies.
Interesting.
But she was asked to throw the first pitch for the LA Dodgers. Mm-hmm. And the reason she was asked is because she and the player, I'm going to butcher, I'm sorry, Shohei Ohtani? I think he plays for the Dodgers.
I believe he's Japanese.
Maybe, but they shared the same birthday, even down to the same birth year. Mm-hmm. And so she was asked to throw the first pitch. And how I first heard about it was people are complaining about her outfit, saying how it was inappropriate. And she wore leggings with tall baseball socks and then like a jersey that's when she raises her arms, it shows her midriff. Mm-hmm. I really don't see the big deal. I understand it's a very modest country, but if you look at like Korean League baseball, other actresses, singers wear outfits that are almost exactly the same.
Or look at any K-pop group.
Or even more quote unquote inappropriate. Only problem I had with her outfit is the leggings were green and the Dodgers are blue. And it didn't, like, the colors weren't quite complimentary. I really didn't think it was a big deal. The other time I saw it and I showed Kim, it was on the Daily Mail. And it was like, she's getting a lot of attention because of how pretty she looked. Mm-hmm. So our reporting is like, wow, she looks great. Mm-hmm. And she's received a lot of interest into transitioning into more Hollywood, like, projects.
Right.
And for Korean news, she's more...
getting criticized.
You're dressed inappropriately. But yeah, Kim was right. Look at a girl K-pop group. I guarantee they're wearing
with minors.
With minors, and she is
dressed exactly the same,
grown
if
adult,
not more conservatively than they are.
Yes. So that is my tea of the day. I found a little video on Instagram, and it's two of our leads from our current show, Goblin. It's Gongwoo and Lee Dong-wook, and they are sitting together watching baseball. And it was
our
kind of
favorite
fun.
Power couple.
Yes, the bromance is still living.
Okay, so to continue on with Kim's unhinged theories.
Yes, this is our new segment, and I'm here for it. I love it so much.
Specific to shows that Kim is watching real time. So they're not really that great. But to continue the flower language discussion, so spinach, which is gifted to EunTak by the woman, represents prosperity, growth, and good fortune.
Ooh. Okay.
And cabbage, which was gifted to her when she was a girl, is said to provide the spiritual ability to peel back layers of interconnectedness in order to help you see the bigger picture.
Oh, okay.
So it gives you, like, insight. And And so that prompted me to be like, is the Ajumma maybe like representative of God in this situation? I still think she might be a goblin. Maybe a bitter goblin who never found her husband or something.
Okay.
Ashley's just like smirking at me from across the couch now.
I told her, every theory you give me, I will just smile.
She'll answer with a smile.
And go, okay, huh. Interesting. I like it.
At the end of, I think we've talked about this, but at the end of the show, I think we're going to do a YouTube video where I go back and collect all the theories. And then over the correct ones, I'll put a green check mark. And over the incorrect ones, I'll put the red X.
And we'll see.
We'll see
where we're at.
How I matched up with the writing. I have a feeling I'm probably batting for 0 right now. But that's okay. I'm having fun coming up with the theories.
I'm loving the theories. Because I've watched this show enough times, I remember having similar theories in some, completely different theories.
Yeah.
And so now I get to just be like, okay, yeah, I remember having that theory. Or I didn't think of that one at all. I like it. It's kind of fun.
I am a little unhinged, But
hey, you know what? I'm here for it, though.
Well, obviously, since she's stuck with me this long. But should we roll into recap?
Let's roll into recap. Tell me what you got.
All right, so EunTak was rescued from the thugs by Reaper and Goblin with a healthy serving of sarcasm, which we love. Dokwa did recon on EunTak's family and discovered that her aunt was hoping to take the $150,000 insurance payout from her. And Goblin exacts his revenge on the family through the use of gold bars, but we don't exactly know how at this point. Mm-hmm. So Goblin starts to wonder about whether the king that betrayed him has reincarnated in modern day. Reaper's miscellaneously omitted persons task force has now been approved by HQ. Dokwa and EunTak meet informally, but they don't actually know that they are both acquainted with Goblin. EunTak accidentally summons Goblin, and they spend the day together, sharing a meal and talking about what it means to be the Goblin bride. And we find out that Dokwa fully knew about Reaper being Grim Reaper, since they both lack subtlety and discretion when it comes to their powers. Reaper is crossing the footbridge and discovers the deceased queen's jade ring being sold by the woman in red. Sunny strikes a bargain with Reaper and exchanges the ring for her phone number. The Ajumma prophesies that they will both end up paying a hefty price for this ring. EunTak's aunt has been sold.
Wow. Bet, let's go.
Reading comprehension, people, it's important. Stay in school. So, EunTak's aunt's home has been sold, which has left your reaction. Sorry. Has been sold.
Did you like my face of like?
You were like, okay, bet, let's go. Right. Okay, let me try that again. The home has been sold, which has left EunTak sleeping in the chicken shop. Reaper cannot remember who he was as a human, but they allude to the idea of him possibly being a king in a past life. But we learn that he has to have had to have committed a great sin to become a Reaper. Reaper gets drunk and keeps crossing. No, Goblin gets drunk. Okay, it's not that funny.
It's because you've hit the wall.
I've hit the wall so hard.
Do you want me to make it better for you?
Goblin? Why? What?
The cat snoring into a microphone. If we redirect.
Oh, okay. Dead puppy, dead puppy, dead puppy. Reaper gets drunk. No. Goblin! Goblin gets drunk.
I'm just going to hide my face. That'll make it better.
Goblin gets drunk and keeps crossing the threshold of his front door in order to find EunTak, and he finally appears before her with an umbrella.
I don't even know what that one was.
I went to sleep at 3 o'clock and I woke up at 7 this morning. It's largely why I am on the verge of tears right now. Okay. That took like 5 minutes.
Hey, you know what?
let's get it out now and be done with it.
Right.
Okay. Where was I? Reaper gets drunk and keeps
crossing the threshold.
Okay. And finally appears before her with an umbrella to share a rather sad exchange in which they are happy to see one another, yet grieving the fact that he will be leaving soon and not to return. Back at the house, Reaper and Goblin are sharing a last huzzah on the couch when the doorbell suddenly rings and the two start to fear for their drunken lives since it hasn't rung in 60 years. It's in talk. No, it's staying in. And she is here to deliver the news that she sees the sword in Goblin's chest. And for the first time in the show, we see open wonder in Goblin's eyes.
Oh, man.
Okay. Episode 4.
So, we start where we left off. EunTak has told Goblin, I see the sword. It's right there. And he just stares at her. And she goes, yeah, I've actually seen it from the beginning. So does that mean I'm your bride?
When she said that, I was like, excuse me? What?
Mm-hmm. Well, because then he just goes, yeah, I think you are. And she goes, okay, so does that mean I now have effective value? And does that mean that you're going to stay? And he goes, I will for now, but I'm probably going to have to leave to go farther away at some point.
And I put, ope.
Yikes. And Goblin asks EunTak, he goes, why haven't you said anything up until this point? And she goes, well, I was scared at first. And then I thought it wasn't very courteous for me to say something to someone I had just met. Then I was scared that something would happen to me. Like, if I said that I had seen it, like, you know, is he going to ask me to marry him right away? What about my college? Am I going to become a goblin too? And the sentence I have after that was like, 19-year-old brain. Like,
that's accurate.
Wait, do I have to do all these things? Is this going to happen to me now? Like, what am I going to do about my future? And so she's like, but then she's also like, but then I also got mad. And so I didn't say anything. So then there was that. So then what do I need to do now as the bride?
She plays adolescence so spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so well.
That is, I was literally watching them like, that is what a high schooler does.
Mm-hmm.
That is a senior in high school right there.
Yeah. Yep.
Your brain is in 75 different directions.
Uh-huh.
You're trying to be like, oh, I'm about to become an adult and I'm going to, you know, have all these plans and I have to make these decisions and does this affect me in this way?
Well, and just like the pseudo-confidence
mm-hmm.
through it all. But really, she's just so insecure underneath. She's like, I had no idea what to do. Like, I was in full-blown panic. But here we are. She just... Kim Goen is so good. She's so talented.
So much. And I love the whole time Goblin's just like in a state of shock.
Mm-hmm.
Because what he has been told is going to happen for years.
For millennia.
Yeah. Hundreds of years is now happening. And it's one thing to like know that it's going to happen, and it's a completely different thing for it to happen to you.
Because now he's staring death in the face. He's never had to do that. In 1,000 years. Like,
right.
We don't comprehend.
I mean, as a general, he had to face that, but that's because he was fighting in war. That's what his job was.
Before he was immortal.
But yeah, he wasn't immortal then. He knew going into battle, I could die. This is a whole new game that he...
Well, he'd accepted that he probably was going to live forever.
Right. He was never going to find his bride. And so Goblin just goes, first thing that I need you to do, I need you to wait here. Just wait. And he runs to Reaper's room, like bursts through the door. And Reaper's trying to get into bed. And he's like, dang it. Like, what do you want now? And he goes, she's my bride. She sees the sword. I'm going to die.
She's like, she pointed right to it. Am I going to die now?
And Reaper's just like, well, isn't that what you wanted? Like, haven't you been looking for her so that you could return to nothingness? And he goes, well, yeah, for most of my life. And Reaper just asks, then what's the problem? Why? She wants to kill you? And Goblin's like, you need to be quiet. I'm not in the mood for jokes. And he's like, okay, well then what are you feeling? Like, are you happy that she can see the sword? Or are you now scared? Which probably is a combination of like, I no longer have to wait. But then it was, I can die now. I have
so much more life to live.
Right. When he starts to pace and he's like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Part of me is relieved. I can end my tiring immortal life. But then, it also wasn't that tiring and I'd like to live a little more. And this interaction, Reaper just looks and goes, just say it. I can take her anytime. She's someone I have to take anyway, even though I'd have to stay up for nights getting the documents ready.
I just put yeesh.
And he's just deadpan through all this of like.
And some of it, like, some of it's true, but some of it is just him trying to, like,
remind him a little bit more, even.
Downplay it and be like, remember, she's just a person.
Right.
And you have your fate. Like.
She has hers.
Yep. Take a breath.
It's gonna be okay. And Goblin just asks him, is that what it sounded like? And Reaper's like, well, yeah. And Goblin, like, runs to him, like, almost, like, grabs his arm, like, yay, and goes, you're right on point. I'm so glad that we finally have a friendship. Rude of Goblin. Really, this is what you're going to decide to be friends on? Is the person you've been longing for 900 years, and you're like, yep, no, take her away. I'm done.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, that's what he's asking. He's like, is that what it sounds like? Yes. Okay, we're friends now. Because.
Oh my gosh, my jaw has just hit the floor.
It did.
That did not resonate with me the first time.
And here we go. And this is how the doorbell rings again.
Yeah, I remember this.
Okay. And Goblin says, death is calling me.
He's like afraid.
And Reaper tells him, if death is, like, if it's ringing the doorbell, it's actually a friendly death. And goes, did you say anything mean to her that she could hold a grudge about? And Goblin just has these flashbacks.
Everything he's ever said to her.
You have no value. You're worthless. You're just
inconsequential.
A side effect. And he's like, you know what? You're right. It would just be simpler to die. It'd just be better.
I'll just die. It's simpler.
So Goblin is outside and he's now scolding EunTak, like saying that she's impatient. Like, why couldn't you have just waited a short period of time? And Reaper, using, like, speaking with his mind, just goes, yeah, go harder. You can only die once. EunTak is just like, you know what? I'm sorry. I can't wait anymore. Ever since I heard about who I was, I've been waiting for only you. Besides, my aunt left the house. They took the she sold it. She's taken the deposit. I don't have a home anymore. And since you're now staying here, I'm going to stay and grow old in this house. I will grow like a cactus and on my own. So please. And Reaper just jumps in. He's like, I approve. EunTak then jumps into the speech that she's had prepared. Because you see her just stand. She looks and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to say this. And it's her speech to convince Goblin. And she's like, I just want to be ordinary. I want to be an ordinary student. I want to take the college entrance exam. Wow.
I'm rubbing off on you.
It's fine. I didn't have a mom. I had no one to support me. I've been abused for the last 10 years. I realized that there was no God. Like, my world has been filled with misfortune. And like fate, I've met you and you can save me. So please. And he goes, you really want to live here when you know who else is living here? And Reaper just kind of waves a little bit. And he goes, if I don't live here, I'll live on the streets and die of starvation. If I'm going to die, I would rather die here beautifully in this house. I've heard that the darkest place is under a lamp. So please be my lamp so that Ajushi can't get me. I mean,
She's not wrong.
And Reaper starts to say about now he and Goblin are friends. And Goblin pushes him out of the way and tells EunTak to go inside and stay in the living room. And he and Reaper go talk. This is when Goblin asks Reaper how a friendship couldn't go on for 5 minutes and how could you tell EunTak that? And Reaper goes, I didn't know I was supposed to keep the fact that you would just ask me to take her a secret. because he didn't know that.
He has no social skills. None. We figured that out in the interaction with Sunny, but yikes. But
that is how you know that Goblin was just like, yeah, take her for Reaper, because he was
yeah.
This is why we are now friends.
Yeah, gosh. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that, because I see that with a whole new lens now.
Right? But then Goblin's like, why would you do that to a kid that has nowhere to go and is pitiable? And he goes, you just left her outside in the cold. How are you any better than me right now?
Yeah.
Reaper then asks Goblin, hey, do you have a way that you can deal with this? And he goes, yeah, I do, but it's a bit mundane. Boy, of all the options that she had given him,
the one she wanted the most at the time,
has asked for over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, of options 1, 2, and 3, I choose option 2, $5,000, and places the envelope full of cash down.
Except for now, EunTak is like looking around thinking, oh, this guy's much deeper pockets than this. Mm-hmm. This is chump change. And she's like, I have realized my error, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
This house is perfect for raising kids. Let's get married and have lots of kids. What type of wife do you prefer? What is your type?
What do you want?
And I was like, oh, yuck. Gross. But
this is the pseudo-confidence pouring out here.
This is her trying to bargain her way into this lifestyle because she has nothing. She might as well give it a shot, right? But we also learn that he can hear her thoughts, similar to how he hears Reaper, because she admits that she had thought of him so often that she tried to quiet her thoughts and think of him in indirect ways so that he wouldn't hear. But he'd actually never heard her up until this point where she showed up on the doorstep.
And he can't hear her thoughts at all.
He can now.
No, because he couldn't hear anything that she was thinking as she was staring at him. And he goes, yeah, no, I totally lied about that. Because she's his bride, he can't hear her thoughts either. That's why he can't find her.
I haven't watched that part twice.
Because she's looking at him like, can you hear my thoughts? And he's like, what are you doing? She's like, I was thinking very loudly about you. I've worked really hard, to not think loudly about you, only think about you, between songs or whatever, think really quietly. He's like, yeah, I know I lied about that.
I've gaslit myself so much already on season 2 that
it's okay.
I don't know whether or not we should continue. All right, so he doesn't hear her thoughts. Thank you, Ashley, for bringing clarification.
I got you.
Situation. It's good one of us has watched this multiple times.
Yes.
I would have let us right over a cliff. Okay, so EunTak at this point is ready to move in, but Goblin has sent her to Shinu's hotel, Shinu and Dokwa's hotel, to live in her own suite. And so Shinu is actually there in the room explaining like the living arrangements, and if she needs anything, that Dokwa is actually going to be right below, because he walks in during this conversation, is like, who are you? Wait.
I know you.
Mm-hmm. You do know Goblin. But notice that her room was full of red.
Yes, it was.
She was there. So they're continuing that whole theme of red. So she is basically like a little kid in a candy store at this point.
Absolutely.
Which she should be, because her room is literally bigger than my house.
It's massive. And so pretty. And like that walk-in bathroom shower thing. Please, can I have one?
I mean, that it was like
the size of this room easily.
Which is insane. But then she lays down on her bed after, running around like an insane person, and then she realizes that she's actually all alone, and it's kind of intimidating to be here. Mm-hmm. She feels like maybe she's a bit out of her depth at this point and doesn't know what she's walked into. But Dokwa is told that in order to recover his cards, he must serve EunTak with respect. And so he is super indignant at this, goes to Goblin to complain, and finds Goblin sitting at the table, staring into a handful of mood-stabilizing medications.
When he has bottles on a tray.
Bottles on a tray.
Oh,
He's got a handful of pills. This is for my nerves. This is for my bipolar disorder. This is for insomnia. I'm really fickle these days. Happy, sad, lonely, splendid. I can't sleep. I've lost weight. And then he takes them and he just hobbles away. And then as he's hobbling away, Reaper hobbles into the dining area and replaces Goblin in his seat and also starts to partake of the medications. And Dokwa's like, what is happening? And Reaper just goes, I have the same symptoms. If I shed a tear after seeing a woman for the first time, what could this be? Pops them in his mouth and chews them like a psychopath.
Oh, gross.
I could like taste the bitter of accidentally chewing something in my mouth after that scene.
And Dokwa's just like, what realm did I just walk into right now? Like, this is an alternate universe almost. I've never seen this.
They're both so broken.
Craziness ever in my life. And then we go to the chicken shop. And EunTak is doing like side work. I don't know if you've ever worked at a restaurant, there's always side work you have to do. Rolling silverware, organizing different things, separating whatever. And in the background, the TV is on, and it's actually the woman in red. And she is talking about the importance of taking care of your mental health. And she starts talking about bipolar disorder and nervous exhaustion and like the effects of insomnia and some symptoms that you should look for, And as she's describing every single symptom, Goblin is exhibiting every single symptom. So it was like, impulsive shopping. If, someone you know and care about suddenly has a bunch of random items that have shown up at their house, be on the lookout for that. And Goblin is laying on the couch. Dokwa is just staring at him, and there's these piles of boxes. And I was like, I wish I had the capacity to have... like, to shop like that. That sounds fun.
Well, considering he just whipped out $5,000 in cash, I'm assuming he has a lot of disposable income.
Dokwa's just like, what? And then the next one is excessive self-confidence. And Goblin walks out, and he stands in front of Reaper and Dokwa, who are watching a show. Yeah. And he puts his arms up like to show off.
Strongman poses.
Yeah, and he's like, go to the sauna if you have the confidence. And then just saunters away. And Dokwa's just like, what? And Reaper just stands up and walks away the exact same saunter. And Dokwa just like sits back in his chair, and he's like, what?
These two have lost it.
And then, for nervous exhaustion, hypochondria is one of the symptoms. And Reaper has gotten like a thing of milk, and Goblin's holding his stomach, and he's like, that's the last one. Can I please have it? I'm pretty sure I have a stomach ulcer. And Reaper looks at him and just chugs the milk and is like, no. And Goblin just holds his stomach and like hobbles away and is just like crying.
Reaper says to him, you look like you'll cry. And as Goblin's hobbling away, he goes, I'm barely holding it in. And then it starts to rain. Oh, I almost think this guy's pregnant.
Hey!
Been there, done that twice.
My guy, you can do this. We can pull through.
Their humor is so complimentary of one another because I feel like they play like the childish indignity or the childish helplessness,
right? Which
perfectly is juxtaposed against like their very masculine, very powerful, authoritative like
beings that they're supposed to be.
Right, those characteristics. And then they're just like, I think I'm gonna cry because you didn't share your milk with me.
Right.
I love it. It's why it hits so well, I think. But EunTak actually sees that it's raining, and she's starting to feel guilty, thinking that maybe she was the cause of his sadness.
Well, and she even yells at the sky, like, you hurt my feelings, and now you're the one that's depressed? That's just not fair.
Yeah, right.
Agreed.
But she's preparing to leave for school from the hotel, and she has an umbrella. But Dokwa actually arrives in a Maserati Gran Turismo.
That's a very nice
which
car.
Retail for around $200,000.
You
know.
Where's my table that I can just marry and, like, ride around in cars like that? Where do I submit my application?
Where do I submit an application to be a chaebol?
Also that.
I don't need the man. I got the man. I just need the money.
I want the man and the money.
Fair. So he escorts her to school and drops her off at the front doors, which gathers way more attention than she was hoping for.
Or ever has wanted.
As she is ducking below the door to try to, like, hide her face. And he actually gets out and opens her door for her. And at this point, she has classmates that are, like, saying her name, like, is that EunTak? Is that EunTak? Mm-hmm. And he looks at her and says, you're EunTak. And realizes that this is the girl that his uncle has paid him to do recon on.
Right.
And he starts to put all the puzzle pieces together and realizes that she's there because of Goblin. Mm-hmm. Or that he is there because of Goblin. And then he asks her what the aunt's punishment ended up being because he was curious. Which takes us to
the trio of her aunt and cousins. They have done themselves up. They caught the one cousin who had taken the gold bars, and she's had the crap beat out of her. She's covered in bruises, her lips cut, and
it's not funny. They're awful people.
They are awful people.
They had it coming because
they're horrible.
Yeah. But
they're at a pawn shop, and they're just staring at these gold bars, like almost salivating over these gold bars. And they're trying to get them appraised, and they want to sell them. And the man's just like, where did you get these from? And they're like, what are you trying to say? And he's like, no, these are just really high quality. Like, the aunt just, plays off like, oh, these were an inheritance. And he's like, okay. He's like, I just need to go get somebody who knows how to, like, these better than I do. And we cut to a police station, and the aunt stands up and, is like, stolen? What do you mean, stolen? And they, the police officer's just like, okay, so you said that these were an inheritance. And she goes, yeah, they're my nieces. And, like, I took them out of her drawer. And, like, she just starts spilling the truth unintentionally. And they're like, well, why did you take it out of your niece's drawer? Like, because even her son is just
Isn't that stealing?
Mom, that's stealing. And she smacks him in the head, like, shut up. And he goes, the police officer's like, okay, you said they were an inheritance. And she goes, I didn't say they were my inheritance. They're my niece's inheritance. And he's like, okay, what's your niece's name? And they can't remember her name. They just start throwing out random names, and they're like, what is her name? Why can't I remember her name? And then they get asked about their address. They're like, where do you live? So that way we can go, like, talk to her. And she's like,
we have a house? Do we have a house?
We had a house.
Do we live somewhere?
And they cannot remember their address at all. And the police officer finally just gets fed up with their antics because he thinks they're messing around. Mm-hmm. And he yells, and he's like, do you think this is a joke? These bars are supposed to be in the Federal Reserve in New York City. And they just kind of get this look on their face of like, oh, so we're done now. We're screwed. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no way out of this. Like, how do we even...
But they start to look like they have had their entire memories scrubbed.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, not just facts about the situation, but...
Or the people.
Yeah, but just, like, they're starting to look very confused about everything.
Life.
Yeah. So...
It's kind of satisfying.
A little bit.
That was a pretty good punishment. Yeah. I don't want that part as a punishment. I just want the gold bars to be an inheritance for me.
Well, it's a good thing you're not an abusive, old, crotchety aunt.
No, I'm a very young, loving, doting aunt who spends all of my money on my nephews and nieces. Complete opposite.
I like it. So Dokwa is chatting with Reaper about EunTak. And Reaper mutters that this must all be God's joke, and proceeds to freeze/crack another Louis XIV plate. And he's just still wrestling over his reaction to, like, Sunny in the streets with this ring. And he ends up returning to the bridge to see if he could run into her by happenstance again. Yeah. And we cut away to a scene where an old man is actually lying in a hospital bed. And his hand is being held by a loved one when his heart monitor stops. So you think, okay, Reaper's got to go to work. But it was interesting that they showed that the wife or the loved one appeared to not be Korean, at least by heritage. So Goblin has donned a black suit and tie and is preparing to leave the house. And he crosses paths with Reaper, who is returning from his outing at the bridge. And he ends up teasing Goblin for looking ready for both a wedding and a funeral. But out of character, Goblin doesn't spar back this time, as he says he's feeling a bit reverent at the moment, and Reaper should just answer his questions honestly. And he asks how his English is, as he needs his help if he does international work.
I love the English that Reaper uses, though.
Yeah.
What? Pardon?
And that's it.
That's it. And next to it, I just have lols.
Which it was intelligible.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes when the actors go to speak English, it's very broken. And I mean, like, kudos to you for trying, but they try to pass it off as extremely fluent, and it's really truly not.
It's not.
Yeah.
That one was like, yep, I know exactly what you're saying, and it flowed very well.
It did. Yeah.
But yeah, I just have lols. That's your English.
I like it. That's about the equivalent of our Korean literacy. So
it's true.
I'm here for it.
So true.
괜찮아?
괜찮아?
괜찮아? 사랑해.
안녕하세요.
여보세요.
감사합니다. 안 돼.
좋아요. Okay, where are we? So, at this point, EunTak has returned to her room at the hotel, which is empty, and she calls Goblin cruel for ignoring her. And she ends up showing up on his doorstep, basically demanding to see him. She has this big old candle.
The thing is going to last for
2.5 feet long, in hand. And she's threatening to use it to summon him. Except for the problem is that we know he's not there right now.
Right.
So we return to Goblin, and he is sitting in a room behind an iron door with, like, a lion on the handle. And the old man from the hospital bed approaches the door. And as the door passes in front of him, he actually ages down to the young boy we met in episode 1 that was being abused by his adoptive family. Was it in France?
Yeah, in Paris, by his adopted dad.
And so the room is actually Reaper's tea house. Goblin asked the boy why he answered question number 17 with 2, even though he knew the answer was 4. And the boy answered that no matter how he tried to solve it, he kept coming up with 2, and it just wouldn't be right for him to answer if he couldn't actually solve it himself. And this ended up being Goblin's test of his character. And this man had become a lawyer to help others in need during his life, since he couldn't actually go back to Goblin directly and thank him for being there in his time of need, and to thank him for the sandwich he'd given him for his lunch. But Goblin tells him that he's done the same for thousands of others, but very few ever do something with it. They just see a handout and they're looking for the next handout. But he used it as a springboard into greatness. And the boy asks what comes next now that, now that he's dead. Yeah. And Goblin tells him to exit out the door he entered through, and the afterlife will be waiting for him. No oblivion tea. He doesn't need to reincarnate in order to live another life. And as he grabs the handle, he ages back into the old man and climbs the stairs to paradise.
And it's a very sweet scene because...
It was.
And, I mean, because Reaper even comes in and he's like... Goblin actually thanks Reaper. He's like, thanks for your help. And Reaper's just like, why do you do that? Nobody asks for you to do this. And he was just like... What else? Kind of just like what else am I supposed to do with my life?
Yeah.
Why can't I help other people, like, enrich their lives so that they can continue that process? And Goblin ends up waiting in the lobby of the hotel, actually. And he's just kind of standing around, and then he looks down and he sees that he is smoking. And he gets this smirk, and he's like, I knew it. EunTak has summoned him, and she has her whole counter covered in candles.
Well, like 100 candles.
And she was like, you weren't home? Why are you avoiding me? And he's like, I was just busy. And she goes, yeah, you're busy avoiding me. I know you don't have a job. And was I a girl that was abandoned by her husband? And Goblin's like, what? We are 19. We need attention here. Acknowledge, please. And she goes, you know, you avoid me because you're the goblin, and then because you're not, and then you avoided me because I didn't see the sword, and now because I do. You're really petty. Go ahead and try to run away. I will blow every single candle. And Goblin just goes, how did you get all these candles? I know you don't have money. And she goes, "Yundok wa hopa?" And he's like, brat, basically. And she's like, why can't I just stay in your house? I know you have a bunch of empty rooms. And he's like, how would you know that? And she goes, "Yundok wa hopa?" Again, brat. And she's like, you told me to wait for now. Waiting for now usually means an hour and a half to a day at the most. And how many days have passed and how much has it rained? Because of me, were you sad? And he's just like, no. And she's like, I've prepared myself. Tell me whatever it is. Like, I'm prepared myself. And he's just like, why are you preparing yourself? That should be what I'm saying. I'm the one that needs to be determined in this. And you don't need to worry about it. And EunTak is just like, I didn't tell you about the sword so that you would be like this. And now that I see the sword, I don't see you. Mm-hmm. And calling him out of like, I don't know what the whole deal with this is, but that's why I didn't say anything, is because I didn't want to become focused on that rather than the person that it has to deal with. Yeah. Which is a very mature thing for a 19-year-old to...
Well, what she doesn't understand, though, is that he is avoiding having to make the decision whether to live or die.
Right.
And he is starting to suspect that if he makes this decision while he's around her, he's not going to want to die. Because he's so fond of her. And he also doesn't want to put that burden on her.
Right. She doesn't need that.
No. And she's a child.
Well, and she's a child that is making the best decision and like judgment call with the lack of information that she's been given.
Yeah.
Which is completely unfair to her. But he changes the subject and asks her if she wants to go eat steak. And she's like, you know what, fine, I'll let it go.
You're forgiven.
That's fine. And she's like, instead of steak, I want something else. And they go to a convenience store. And at this point, Goblin has had a beer or two.
A beer.
And he's drunk.
We've established it only takes one.
Yes. And he's just like, but she has all this food that she'd been wanting. And so she could like carry it home in a bag and have extra snacks. And he's like, I can buy you all this in one payment.
From this end to this end.
And then he's like, do you need toothbrushes? I can buy you this many. And just like
runs his finger.
Every single one. And he's like stumbling. And she's like, I think we need to go now.
He is so tanked.
We
At first I thought he was being genuine. And then I was like, oh, he is gone.
He's gone. And they're walking back. And she asks him again, am I really your bride? And he goes, yeah. And she goes, well, is it okay for me to see other men? And he goes, well, I wouldn't recommend that. And she goes, well, what are you going to do about my third wish? Job, Anne's family, boyfriend. Where's the boyfriend? Boyfriend! Yeah. He's like, that's never going to happen in this lifetime because I don't like it. No. And she's like, yeah, well, your no doesn't necessarily mean no. Like, you haven't really proven yourself to be consistent with honesty. So I don't believe what you're going to say.
Yeah. But also you.
Because then she asks him if he likes her, and he goes, no. And that is, I think, I don't know if she was necessarily meaning full-on romantic or just, like, as a person. Because I think there might be a little bit of both. Because she's hoping that he likes her, at the very least, as a person. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, no. And so I think he was responding to the romantic question that was thrown in that of liking her. And she then asks him, you know, about him and the abilities that he has. Like, you know, so when you're sad, it rains. And just kind of trying to learn more about him. And, how have you lived your life up until now? And he goes, well, I've lived it waiting for you. That's what the Goblin has done. He has been waiting for his bride to show up. And he kind of stops like in front of like a light pole. And she goes, okay, what place am I as a bride? And he tells her, you're the first and the last. She's like, okay, sure, the first, but why the last? And he goes, because that's what I decided. She doesn't know that it means he goes back to nothing. And he looks down at the sword and goes, this, she asks what happens if I don't become your bride, if I decide against it. And that's when he looks at the sword and he goes, then this will never be pulled out, and you're the only one who can do that. And I need you to take the sword out for me so that I can be pretty. Like, you need to make me pretty.
He debated on telling her because he's being a little bit honest with all of this alcohol. It's a couple ounces of alcohol in him.
Right.
But even
then,
even tipsy Goblin was like, I can't tell her.
I can't break her like that.
Either because he's protecting her or because he's protecting himself.
Yeah.
Because if someone else finds out and is able to utilize her against him, that would also be bad.
Very detrimental.
Yeah.
When he's not quite sure that he's ready to.
But I love the part where she says, so it rains when you're sad. What happens when you're happy? Did flowers bloom or something? And he's just like, pass.
I'm not answering that question. Next question, please.
So he does say, she offers to like pull it out for him. And he said, let's do it some other time. For now, let me just laugh with you tonight.
And then
it's kind of sad.
It's very sad because he's realizing that
he's finding joy.
Right. And she asks him, well, should we take out the sword by the first snow? And he goes, okay, we'll take it out by the first snow.
And I was like, prophecy. Prophecy. We talked about flowers.
We've talked a lot about flowers.
We talked about snow. And I'm guessing there'd be a little bit of blood when he, has the sword pulled out of him, so.
I mean, I would assume flowers, so. That tends to be the
blood. Okay.
The first episode, what? Well, EunTak the next day is walking to school and she sees the bunch of people are taking pictures and they're just like
making a huge fuss.
And she looks and they're on a tree, cherry blossoms have bloomed. And we cut to Tokwa in Goblin's room and throwing newspapers down with headlines that read, cherry blossoms and magnolias bloom out of season. And Goblin just looks away and he's hungover. He's looking rough. And Tokwa's just like, something good must have happened last night for it to be autumn and really big blossoms in the morning. You drank, didn't you? And he's just like, Goblin just goes, what are you going to do about flowers? Flowers. Uncle, you drank, right? All of those you said informally. What, am I your brother now? And Tokwa's like, should we? Should we do that? Okay, Hyung, what did you do last night? And he's like, you insolent! And just like totally tries to derail him. And Tokwa's just like, just say you don't remember.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Like, there's no way to explain this.
He baby rages a lot.
Oh, he's a child.
He baby rages so much. Especially like with the photo in last episode where he just like whips it onto the ground.
Oh my goodness. Poor Tokwa.
Puts up with so much. Brings out the worst in him, though.
It's hilarious.
It's amazing.
But I love that he calls him out. And he was like, you know what? Just tell me that you don't remember.
Yeah.
Because then I don't have to do anything about it.
He's so unbothered. He's just like, no.
Again, he's known that he's a goblin his entire life because he could not hide it very well.
Yeah. So the two of them decide to visit a coffee shop together. And we see them walk in the door, and Goblin stops mid-stride and goes, what is this? And Dokwa just keeps walking and goes, a vacant table, what are you? Mm-hmm. And he sits down, and so Goblin joins him, and we see next to Dokwa is Reaper. So we learn that he can apparently control whether or not humans can actually see him. No, because he's seen him in the hat.
Dokwa hasn't.
Yes, he has.
When?
when he was sitting 3 feet from him in the house that one time.
What episode is that supposed to be?
Last episode. When he was talking smack about Reaper.
He was holding his hat.
Was he holding his hat? See, because I thought it was the hat too, but then I thought that he had been wearing the hat when Dokwa had approached him. Okay, so it is the hat.
It is the hat.
Cool. That confirms that for me. Like I said, it's a good thing someone who has watched it multiple times has been here. Okay.
Well, that's why episode 1, when the car hits Reaper and the guy gets out and he gets all upset, and then when he disappears, it's because he's put his hat on. And so humans can't see them if they're wearing the hat.
Okay, makes sense.
Wait, so Dokwa doesn't see Reaper sitting next to him.
Dokwa doesn't see Reaper, and Goblin has lost his memory of the night before and is starting to recall some different moments, specifically through watching Dokwa drink a banana milk. He remembers EunTak drinking a banana milk, and he starts to like lose it. He's like,
panic.
I don't know what I said. I don't know what I told her. And then he starts to remember. He told EunTak about pulling the sword out. And Reaper is there for the ride. He's watching Goblin lose his crap outside. Because at this point, they're outside of the coffee shop.
Right.
They've had their meal. And they've actually watched a drama together. One that Reaper and Dokwa were both very invested in.
Because it was the last episode.
It was the last episode, and there's this big plot twist where the main character was like the mother or something. I don't know. Anyway, so they go outside. Goblin starts to like go off on Reaper, but Reaper's still invisible. And there's just this ajashi like walking by, just staring at him like, okay. And Dokwa's like, I don't know. He's a stranger. I have never met this guy in my life. Better keep walking. And so he remembers, though, he told EunTak about pulling out the sword.
Well, because then, you know, Dokwa asks him, like, dude, are you okay? And this is when Reaper, you know, tells Goblin, since it turned out like this, I think it's for the better. It's good, even if you die now. Ouch.
He's such a jerk.
He's so mean. But that's when Goblin tells him, I will burn your hat down. And he's like...
And then he just, like, pieces out.
He's like... Have a good day. I gotta go to work. Sunny is at a department store and she's getting her makeup done. And the lady that is doing her makeup's like, wow, you're so pretty. Like, you could... The term, at least how it's translated, says you could smear crap on your face and you would still look pretty. No, don't do that. But just to say, like, how gorgeous she is. And the lady asks her, you know, are you going somewhere? Do you have an appointment? Do you have a boyfriend? And Sunny just tells her, I'm looking pretty so that I can wait for a call to get one. And she goes and to wait on the bridge where she had first run into Reaper. And at the same time, Reaper is walking down a street, and every woman that he sees Sunny representing, like, it's represented by Sunny, and he's just like, there's like somewhere like they walk by and he just has his hand over his mouth, just like, what am I seeing here? Why can't what?
Surprised Pikachu face.
Yes, surprised Pikachu face. Oh, that is a great way to put it. And then Sunny and EunTak are sitting in the shop and kind of just looking out the window, and EunTak asks her, why are you always looking out the window? And she's like, well, because there's stuff going on out there and I'm waiting for someone. And they talk about, like, who they were waiting for. She's like, oh, like a prince. And she's like...
On a white horse.
On a white horse. She's like, yeah, it's too young for me. It'd be better if he was a king on a white horse.
Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum. Which further supports Kim's theory that this is a reference to his possible kingship. And her queendom. All right, moving on.
Okay. So, EunTak is now at school, and she's looking at the business card that Yushin had given her. And, you know... She's just kind of looking at it and thinking things over, and one of her classmates, who's more of a bully, takes it out of her hand and goes, where did you get this? And she's like, you need to give that back to me. It was given. She's like, well, you know, what man did you pick this up from? Was it the old man in front of the school? Was it this man here? And she's like, wow, you're really diverse in your taste. Like, she's being very cruel.
Calling her, like...
mean names.
Promiscuous... person that stands on the corner.
Yes, that's a great way to put that. But as she is like bullying her, a cigarette gets placed in between her fingers. And
at first I thought it was UNhinged, and I was like, what the heck? And then I realized it was the bully.
It was the bully.
It's like, yeah, get it.
The bully then takes the cigarette and she takes a drag, and her friends are like, dude, what are you doing? She's like, what? And the teacher walks up and she's like, what you doing? And she's like, nothing. Then she goes, can you give me a light? And the teacher's just like, what is wrong with you? Get out. And she's like, no. This isn't mine. This actually belongs to UNhinged. Like, I was taking it from her. And another student turns around and just like, you know that she doesn't smoke. Everyone knows that UNhinged doesn't smoke. Quit. Like, you need to leave her alone.
I love though that this was Ko Pokyeol, who plays Choi Yuna in Cinderella and the Four Knights. The stepsister.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Whoo, mind blown moment right there. I haven't seen that in a long time.
I was excited to see her in a not awful,
mean, horrible
person role.
So the teacher takes the bully out of the room, and we see in the very back of the room, sitting on the counter, are UNhinged's little ghosty friends. And they are just like waving like, hey, we got you, sis. And UNhinged is walking out of school, and the one comes up, she goes, blood revenge.
You're like, whoa,
calm down. But they're just
back.
Like, aren't you so proud of us? And like, you see what we did? We got you. Like, that was really fun.
Yeah.
And like, we got her for you. And UNhinged stops and turns around, make sure that no one sees her. And she's just like, thank you so much.
At first I thought though that maybe they were just trying to get on her good side because she's the Goblin's bride, but then I was like, I think they actually like her. Mm-hmm. They actually appreciate that she's like a kind person.
Right. Well, and we know that they're not trying to necessarily get on our good side because a car drives up and they skedaddle real quick. And it is Goblin, and he has come to pick her up from school. And they're driving. And UNhinged's like, why are you driving? You never use a car. Like, do you even have a license? And he goes, what do you take me for? I'm just showing off my car. Like, he's totally...
He's a guy.
Totally I gotta show off what I got because I feel cool when I feel appreciated for, material things. And she's like, well, last night I took you for a drunkard.
Yeah.
Ooh. And asks if he's eaten hangover soup, if he feels better. And Goblin just goes, did I make any mistakes last night? And she's like, what, do you have no memory? And he goes, can't you see I regretfully remember everything? Why do you ask about eating? Like, can't you eat before you see me? She just got out of school, boy. She doesn't have time to eat. She's still on school property. And then he asks her, what do you want to eat? Do you want to eat beef? And she goes, wow, I didn't even think of that. Let's do it. Like, you're going to offer her a steak? She's going to take the offer of a steak. Absolutely.
If, Candy would have never gotten me into the back of a van, perfectly grilled T-bone, you would not be hearing from me again.
Tacos.
Tacos for you?
Barbacoa tacos. Barbacoa queso tacos. They're the tacos that have cheese that are fried into the shell. So it's a corn tortilla and then cheese and then the barbacoa, and you dip it in consomme.
We need to go to...
Goblin pulls over and tells her to stay put, and he goes to open the door, and when he opens the door...
Well, they're on the side of a busy freeway.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, is he mad at her again? Is he going to kick her out or something?
What is he doing? But he opens the door, and suddenly they are back in Quebec.
Yeah.
And she, he's taking her for beef, and as she's looking at the utensil, she starts to play with the knife like it's a sword, and he's just like backing away, like, I really
too
need
close
you to
to
calm
home.
down. You need to chill.
So he asks her what the handle of the sword looks like, just to, confirm. And she takes pause and she describes it as a handle with a tiger. And he goes, it's a white tiger. Isn't that like extremely fierce or something like that?
How cool is that?
How cool is that? And then she asks him what happened to land him in this scenario. And he answers that it was someone he had never imagined doing so. she changes the subject because she kind of acknowledges that, this is a painful story. And then she asks him what his age is, and he responds that he's 939 years old, to which she responds, I see it's an even more painful story. I'm sorry. And I was kind of like, lol. Is she just making fun of him for being old, or...
Just like, I don't know how else to respond to this.
Yeah, or maybe she was just acknowledging the fact that he's been stewing over this for 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. But she says that it must be nice to live so long and have everything that you could possibly want. And he asks if she would want to stand frozen in time while everyone around you flows through the natural cycle of life. And she says that she would. Since she has him, it would be okay. And in this moment, she's just super transparent about her reliance on him. I mean, she always has been.
Right.
But we get just a deeper picture of the fact that her world kind of revolves around him at this point. 'Cause she has nobody else. And he's been a willing provider and a willing friend, and
just let her experience different things.
Yeah. I mean, Canada. They're sitting in Canada eating right now.
For the second time.
For the second time, yeah. And he says, or who says this? Where would you find sadness that goes on for 1,000 years? And she says, because she asks him.
Well, they're taking a walk.
Yeah. And she's like, are you still.
Like, why are you so cheerful for someone who's been
and
alive for so long?
He says, I mean, you've been alive for 1,000 years. You don't want to stay sad for that long. Mm-hmm. Where would you find sadness that goes on for 1,000 years? And she says that she votes that there is such a thing as sad love that could go on for 1,000 years. But then she kind of pivots and starts to accuse him of abandoning her because he has another woman that he might be pining for. And maybe he doesn't truly believe that she's the Goblin Bride. And then she offers to pull out the sword to prove it, which he flinches away from.
He's like, nope.
And then she starts there by this fountain, and she starts insisting on pulling it out so that he can become pretty again. Like, she's being earnest. She's not being silly. She's just trying to be helpful. And he, like, starts to evade her. And, like, mind you, they're in the middle of this public park near, like, a fountain playing this fancy game of tag at this point.
Absolutely. Okay, he's using his powers to, like, get away as well.
Well, not yet, but she tells him to make her golden bars with his magic club.
Oh, yeah.
Which he denies having a magic club.
He doesn't have a magic club.
And she asks how a goblin could not have a club, and he produces the goblin sword. And she fangirls over it.
Out of the water from the fountain behind.
And he is so pleased with the fact that she thinks it's cool.
I'm pretty sure I have the Goblin is like a teenage boy showing off his new car.
Kinda, yeah.
He's like, I know, right?
Exactly. Cool. But the sword disintegrates into water, and he ends up kind of just playfully splashing her with it. Mm-hmm. And then she goes to try to splash him back with water from the fountain, but then he keeps teleporting to other areas, which prompts her to ask what her cool powers might be, since he seems to have so many in his arsenal. She is, after all, the Goblin Bride. Mm-hmm. But EunTak then asks Goblin to wait near the fountain for her and gives him a book since he loves to read, and it's titled The Stars Might Take Your Pain Away. And he promises not to leave her. So EunTak goes into the hotel and writes a letter that she seals and drops into the mailbox and says, please deliver it to him. And we don't actually know the contents or the recipient of this letter, which I thought was really interesting. But Goblin is reading the book at a table as he waits for EunTak, and he starts to thumb through some of the poems that she has like marked off in the book. And he looks up to see EunTak waving at him from across the street. And he starts to recite one of the poems that he had read called Physics of Love. And it goes, mass is not proportional to volume. A girl as small as a violet, a girl who moves like a flower petal is pulling me toward her with more force than Earth's mass. Just then, like Newton's apple, I rolled toward her without stopping until I fell on her with a loud thud, with a thump. And as he starts to recite this, he's actually watching her cross the crosswalk. Mm-hmm. And as she steps on the yellow paint, it's momentarily becoming red. And then as she stands upon each stripe. So she starts to like excitedly leap from each stripe. Yeah. Watching it like turn red. As she kind of like bounces her way over to Goblin. And as she runs toward him, he is taken back to his last moments as a human. staring up at the midday sun with the sword in his chest, waiting for death. And I think that he's wondering at this moment if all of his suffering and all of this waiting has kind of been made worth it by this small girl that's kind of pulling her into her gravitational field, I guess, if you will. Mm-hmm. But she reaches Goblin and asks if he was the one causing the stripes to turn. But he just kind of wordlessly just continues to stare at her, and he recites the last line in his mind: "My heart keeps bouncing between the sky and the ground. It was first love."
And then we end the episode.
I have mixed feelings.
That's valid. Valid.
Character of the hour.
There's a lot going on. I think my character of the hour, I think it is Goblin.
Yeah.
For this one. I mean, he's doing his one, I mean, he's having to face his new reality now of
there's options.
I can die now. Mm-hmm. And whether or not I want it, it's a reality.
Right.
And if I don't want to suffer, through this long life that I've had for 939 years, I can end it. But then also protecting EunTak and just providing for her, giving her a place to stay. She has the hotel, she has Dokwa to look out for her and his grandfather, and just she has all these people that are now there for her. And I mean, even Reaper's kind of looking out for her in a little bit of a weird way, but he's just trying to get things set up. And he is now also having to he's just having to be more real. Mm-hmm. Of like, when he gets drunk and he ends up telling her about, you have to take this out. And again, protecting her, you will make me pretty if you pull this out. And,
it's like he's getting back in touch with his humanity.
Yes.
Because
he now has to.
He has the option to die as a human.
Right.
To enter into oblivion.
But I also love when he freaks out on Reaper. And it's like,
the panic.
Shut up, I'll burn your hat down. He's finding almost that childishness again of like, showing off his sword, being like, yeah. That's really cool. Like he's
finding joy in things.
Yeah, he's not just, oh, I'm just a cheerful goblin who's had to accept his fate.
Putzing around, feeling sorry for himself.
But then also the interaction of the old man who was the young boy in Paris, and just
that was so good.
How he went out of his way and was like, you did well. Like, mm-hmm. I'm proud of you, and you took what I gave you and you decided to make it something bigger.
Yeah.
So I think this episode of Goblin,
which I think is what he ultimately has been trying to do with his curse, mm-hmm. is try to make something good of it, because it sucks.
Right.
But he is trying to use this as a step up toward helping others.
Right.
And so when he sees others do what he's essentially trying to do, he has a lot of respect for it. Obviously, since he travels the world to go escort them into the afterlife.
Right. Who's your character of the hour?
Weirdly, I feel like it might be Dokwa. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like he's kind of unassuming. But he's sort of the glue that sort of holds things together, in a weird way.
Because he's in the real world?
Because he exists in the real world. But he is a little bit shallow. But at the same time, I think he actually does truly, truly care for, like, his uncle. Mm-hmm. And has deep respect for his grandfather. Because you just walk away if you really wanted to.
You wouldn't take the newspaper and throw it in your uncle's face and be like,
and give him a hard time, I think he loves his life. I think he enjoys that it's exciting, and that he's in proximity to like these beings that are both deity and dopey, because they're just they're
that's a great way to put it,
tossing plates at each other and causing cumulus clouds to like spawn in front of their couch.
They're taking medication for insomnia,
and like a normal person would probably be just like, these are the hands that the world rests in, but he's just like, this is life. Yeah, this is great.
You are who you are.
So I like his approach. He's like, it'll all work out.
True. We do lift a qua.
Final thoughts.
Well, I'll let you give final thoughts first, because
I really liked episode 3, like we kind of established the dynamic between like Goblin and Reaper. Mm-hmm. And I love that they're just so in denial about the fact that they're friends with each other.
So great.
I really need them to age up and talk. I can't buy into the romance of it until they age her up. Are they going to?
Yeah. She ages up.
Thank goodness, because I was just thinking, this is like, we just got Epsteined.
We got Epsteined, oh no.
No, I think that once she is able to play the character in a more mature sense, I think I will actually be able to buy into the romance side. But for now, I'm just living for the bromance, because
the bromance is
it's
truly
beautiful.
The best.
And I really need to know what's going on with Ajima and the Ring and Reaper. Honestly, that piques my curiosity more than Goblin's origin currently, like with the Queen. But I think they're connected. They have to be. The Ring is the thing that ties both of their fates together.
A lot of fates, yeah.
And so, well, I guess the 2 story arcs is what I'm trying to say. So I need to know where that goes. And I'm telling you, he was the king.
Who?
Reaper.
Okay. I have to stay consistent with that.
I know. How about you, though?
I love the relationship of Goblin and Reaper, of course. It's my favorite. But I even love just, we get a little bit more growing in just like all of the characters together now. They're not so separated anymore. It's, they're actually becoming more and more intertwined.
Yeah.
And it's just, it gets farther and grows more, as we continue on. Also, it was very satisfying for the aunts and the cousins to get caught and be told that they got gold bars from the New York branch of the Federal Reserve.
Do we revisit their story, or are they
yes,
kind of...
we still get more of them.
Beautiful.
There's some unfinished things with them as well.
I have done a surprisingly good job of staying away from spoilers.
I'm very impressed.
I did have one spoiler that I did run into, and it's that, and I'll cut this part out, but it's at the...
dang, I was hoping you didn't get that one.
I know. I ran into that one on accident.
That was going to be the one that I wanted it to be like your reaction of like... That's a big
plot point.
A big plot point.
I know. I was kind of disappointed, because that was when I was trying to Google if it was a webtoon. And then when I did that, it had like a secondary recommendation. I was like, ugh. So I just like was like, okay, I'm done Googling things. I can't.
I don't need any more spoiling.
What I should do is have you Google them for me to see if you can find them, if I have something that needs Googled. But I was really frustrated because I hate spoiling things for myself. So I love to ride the ride. I like to ride the ebb and the flow. But no, I just really need to know what's going on with that ring. I did not spoil anything about the ring for myself, or the Ajima. I was actually kind of like weirded out by that mirror scene. Like it caught me off guard a little bit, and I was like, "Ooh, she's kind of gross looking again."
Like, oh, gross. That's not what I wanted.
Well, and it gives you kind of the heebie-jeebies, because she's just like, "You're gonna pay the price."
Okay, well, that was the end of episode 4.
Anyway,
that way we have our
exit. I'm still really swollen.
That's okay. Hey, we made it through, and there was a good... The whole beginning of us dying.
It was amazing.
That was awesome.
Yes.
We have had many crack up points throughout all of the recording that we have done.
That was the worst.
What do you mean worst? That was awesome. That was great.
Okay, sorry. That was the best.
It was so good. I think when we crack up, it's truly because, one, we're sleep deprived.
Yeah.
2, we're just enjoying what we're talking about so much. And when we fumble or find something of, I mean, Lee Hyun-jun from What's Wrong with Secretary Kim?
Yeah.
A strong, independent woman.
Oh my gosh, that was beautiful. That was like the OG crack up, I think.
One of them, because we had a few that we just...
Not to that extent, though.
To that extent, so that's going to have to be like a shirt.
I know, right?
Strong, and just have his face on it.
Here's my thought.
Yes.
You pick the biggest plot twisty episode. We will live react to it together. But you have to pick it, because I don't know which... You know, obviously I can't go looking, but...
So I need to watch it and then rewatch it.
Well, no, I mean, if you find, like, a synopsis or something. If you go on, like, My Drama Beans.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
You would be able to find a synopsis. But I figured it'll be one of the last. Probably not the last, because that's usually when they wrap up everything. Mm-hmm. But maybe, like, second to last, third to last.
Which I do have a video of... I don't remember if it's the last episode or second to last episode of Goblin, of the actors watching it.
Really?
Oh, so good. So good. Right. I have it saved so I can send it to you.
After we've watched it?
After we've watched it. That way you can be like,
all right.
What?
Now I'm nervous.
It's so good.
You're going to break my heart.
Always.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note... We almost made it to before midnight.
Almost.
We were close.
Only a few minutes off. There's some rambling that we did as well, so.
Some.
We always ramble, but.
Find us on Ramble. Oh my gosh.
That's a podcast name.
Own... I know it is. That's why I said it.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, or like not a podcast, but I think it's like a hosting site.
Oh yeah, for Rotten Bingo.
That's what it is. Yeah,
that's what it is. I was like, wait, I know this. Ramble.
Like what you're hearing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any new episodes. We'd love to connect with you on our Instagram at the KDrama Show. For more behind the scenes content, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. Links are in the show notes. Thanks for hanging out with us on the KDrama Show with Ashley and Kim, and we'll see you next time.